Hey, what's going on, guys? Crass Businessman here. Today I want to talk about a clarification that I believe represents a large swath of the population, and we seem to keep talking past each other, and so I want to make that clear here. There's a lot of people that are either middle or to the right of that have no problem with gay people. The only thing we really have a problem with is when someone makes that the entire focal point of their personality, where everything is, oh, well, as a gay man, and it would be the same with anything else. When someone makes one thing the entirety of their personality and can't stop talking about it, it's just more so annoying. We don't wish any ill will to them or anything of that sort. Now, when you get further to the extreme portion of the right, then yes, I will say that there's a portion of them that, believe in Old Testament type stuff where it's like, yeah, they should be, they're an abomination and they should be either dead or, use this conversion therapy, which is not an effective methodology. But the way you dropped off, the way it lost a lot of its traction, and the way that we started disconnecting is when the alphabet mafia started added the T to the end of the acronym. So, lesbian, gay, and bisexual. Most of us didn't give a shit about that because it's literally just a preference. I prefer to be with a man. I prefer to be with a woman. I have no preference with either one. We didn't really care. And I think, even amongst utilitarians, it was like, well, who cares? It's there's no real harm there that's like measurable, Now, one can cite some, obscure statistics that say that, gay men are more likely to be sex offenders or something like that. Evidence is a little iffy on that because there's also a lot of positives when it comes to, gay marriage with men where they tend to make a lot more money. They tend to have more, they tend to have lower divorce rates and things of that nature. But either way, rather than getting in the weeds on that, the place that we dropped off was when you added the T on the end of that acronym. And you've grouped together a bunch of people that are legitimately unrelated. And then you said that if you don't like this one, then you don't like any of them. And that's just not fucking true. And instead of arguing with you, a lot of us just said, okay, fine, fuck you. Yeah, I don't like any of you motherfuckers. And just because it was easier. But everyone that I talk to, they just really don't give a shit about gay people. In the sense that I don't care if you're gay. I'm not going to shun you. I'm not going to hate you. I'm not going to avoid you like the plague. That was never an issue my entirety growing up. And we grew up in a moderate family. We had liberal friends. We had conservative friends. It didn't matter. But transgenderism in specific, trying to equivocate that to gay is completely disingenuous. It's not based in any kind of, it's not factual in any kind of way. It's not provable in any kind of way. It's an outright denial of reality. And it's an assertion of an ideology that makes no sense. And so that's when you lost support and tried to, say, oh, well, you're just a hateful bigot who... It's like, no, you keep driving points forward that make no sense. So we can't get on board with that. So when you say, well, it's all a spectrum. We don't know whether a man is a man or a woman is a woman. What even is a woman? Even asking that question makes you a piece of shit. And then all this other stuff. And so, yeah, you're going to get a rejection of transgender ideology, especially when you consider the inarguable and undeniable origin of it. I mean, that's one of the big reasons why we all deny Scientology, is that, yeah, it was started by a science fiction writer, and it's founded on a bunch of weird shit. The guy was also a borderline pedo, and no sane person would look at Scientology and be like, yeah, that makes sense. It's all coming together. Like, no one does that. And so the same thing with trans ideology. It was started by a guy named John Money, who was performing some insane and egregious, morally repugnant tests and experiments where he made siblings have sex with each other. He tried to raise one after a botched circumcision, tried to raise one kid as a girl who ended up killing himself. And yeah, the guy was a known pedo. If this isn't raising like flags that are so red they're orange, I don't know what to think at that point. But that aside, let's look at it based off of its merits. So what even is the claim of transgender ideology? It's the assertion that sex and gender are different. Okay, based on what? Well, based on feelings. Okay. But they took it farther than that, though. They say that, well, trans women are women. Okay? But you haven't even defined woman yet. Well, woman is whatever you want it to be. Okay? Not how definitions work. I'll be glad to follow some sort of scientific methodology to get to this point where you think you're correct. So we can really break it down like this. Are feelings subjective? The answer is yes. Are feelings a reliable method for determining truth? No, they're not. The other day, my TV turned on by itself. Seemed like it was possessed. It's not possessed. It felt like it was. Wasn't. Objectively not true. Objectively different than provable reality. And so, it's not going to be a reliable way to determine truth. And then when you take equally subjective notions like, oh, well, I feel like a woman, what the fuck does that even mean? Like, how is that measurable in any way? How could we test that? How do we, like, okay, let's say that my hand grazes a Barbie doll and I enjoyed it, right? Does that mean that I'm feeling like a woman at that point? And can we compare it to anything to justify it? No, it really is that simple. And then you add in other things that are equally egregious and morally repugnant, like gender-affirming surgeries and puberty blockers and things of that nature. And you say, using very flimsy evidence, saying, well, this helps. And if you don't want to help, then you're a piece of shit. You're just a hateful bigot. And it's like, well, you're just not being accurate, though. I looked into this. There's very flimsy evidence that even, and it doesn't prove anything either. There was a very, very, very mild, slight correlation between gender-affirming surgery and improved mental health outcomes. The way they proved these mental health outcomes is there were less prescriptions being refilled. That ain't proof of nothing. That's not proof of anything. Also, this study was done in Sweden. Vastly different culture there. That does play a significant role. But further than that, you look at the other studies, and you see that there's horribly flawed methodology. Like from every abstract that you read. Please, I implore you to look into this. Look into the most cited studies about transgender ideology. And yeah, I know, I'm calling it transgender ideology. Whatever I don't care. Look into transgenderism and all the studies related to it, and you'll come to the conclusion as a rational adult, if you are in fact rational, you'll come to the conclusion that these are horribly flawed in not only their claims, their methods, and their conclusions. It's not all entirely the researcher's fault, because a lot of what happens is people will they'll mislabel the abstract and say, study proves that this, and this. It's not what the abstract claims, so they're overstating that. And then they'll also overstate the conclusion and say, well, this proves, and the claim, in the conclusion was that there may be a possible link. More studies need to be done. And so, nothing supports transgender ideology in any sort of concrete, objective way. Like there's well, this may reduce stress levels on a very short time scale if you confirm someone's, you affirm someone's gender identity, but that's not proof of anything. So, long rant longer. You lose us. You lose the support that you would normally get when you try to commandeer the lesbian and gay community by adding yourselves onto it. Because now you lost us. You lost so many of us that supported you. Or, well, we supported the gay anyway. And you make it hard to support gay anymore when you've artificially added yourself to this group that we previously supported by and large. Because it just doesn't make any fucking sense. And it's not fair. It's not fair to the rest of us to try to demonize us for not supporting the whole when we support part. So I think we need to separate those two things. We need to divorce those two things. I do support LGB. I can support them all day. Am I going to support them like in terms of like pride? Probably not. I don't think, and again, I'm only going to bring this up because it's prevalent to what I'm talking about. I'm an atheist. I am not a religious person whatsoever. I am an atheist. So I don't find any secular reasoning why there should be any real big problem with gay. So, but am I proud of it? No. But I'm kind of neutral. Like, I'm not gay, so why the hell do I care about being, pride? And also, support of something doesn't mean that you want it to be like normalized everywhere, or that you want it to be way more mainstream or anything of that sort. And that's a clever trick that these people do, where they're like, well, if you're not willing to be decked out in gay pride stuff, then you hate them. No, not at all. I also don't wear a Mexican flag. And like, even though my grandparent is Mexican, I'm still not repping a Mexican flag. Does this mean that I hate my family? No. So there's a vast difference between like outward pride and, and support in a more reserved way. And it's like, oh yeah, Mexican pride. I wasn't born in Mexico. My dad's mom is from Mexico. And so, like, I'm not Mexican. I'm not. My ethnic background includes some Mexican, which would technically be classified as Hispanic. So it would just be inappropriate for me to be like, oh yeah, Mexican pride. Fuck yeah. Doesn't pertain to me in any way. So, does this mean that I hate Mexicans? No. So stupid. And it's just such a childish way to try to just paint with broad strokes and be like, oh, well, just if you like this, that means you hate this. It's just hateful. Shut up. Just shut up. I've been rambling on long enough. I don't know if I'm even going to release this video, but let me know what you think. Comment below and all that stuff.